I have just pulled the trigger
Yeah,
on
it
the
was.
live. If you guys are interested, we are online right now. I am Scott Stimson from International Computer Solution Breakfast Outfit because I'm here in A&B. If you're looking for the most accommodations in Anchorage, please give us a call. If we still have space, we will set you up with a reservation. Solutions, well, you know that I'm the guy, Scott at internationalcs.net, and I am here, Computer Club. We are discussing the tech topics of the week because I am a little light on topics. We've got, I don't know if it's a digression, it's definitely a lateral change into the political. How come I can't even say the word now? About Senate, the Q. the Thank you. The January 6th hearing.
And it's just now starting public hearing, and they're just calling it to order.
They have two main audiences. They have us, the Department of Justice, because apparently there will be no justice that comes out of this, but apparently the truth, and hopefully the Department of Justice is paying attention and taking notes so that there can be some kind of criminal enforcement about these trials. They're not trials, they're hearings. So, how's everybody doing this morning? Have we brought some topics? Oh. And Chester's here, Judy's here, Paul's here, Dave's and Bill this morning that made it clear they are on the road with crappy internet and they won't be able to join us until next week. I feel choppy. I feel like I'm having a choppy internet experience. People, all right. Well, I've already opened it up. This is the document that I sent. It doesn't actually have much new on it from bed and breakfasting our butts off here. Some of the news topics that I had included on this include things, and I'm trying to bring it up on my other computer so I can share the link. Interesting because it's my trying to do extra research on it. It's an interview with a general, and he's quoted as saying that Elon Musk provided to the Ukraine has totally destroyed the campaign. On this article because I thought it was a really interesting read, and I had a lot of trouble talking to this general and capturing this opinion. I don't know if anybody had a chance to look at this article, but they're basically links. I'm curious about finding other opinions on this. This comes from Yahoo News. I'm still trying to bring Yahoo News, and I wonder if it doesn't Starlink. I mean, I'm happy with the idea of helping the Ukraine. I think it's just especially with modern societies where diplomacy has been an option being, but at the same time we live in. Go ahead, Chess. Bring up our document.
I haven't read the article. Military in Ukraine, or is it propaganda in Russia?
It is overcoming the propaganda in Ukraine, or it's all of these things from what I read. The Ukrainian troops to do political analysis. It's making it possible for troops in the field to stay in communication with, and it's making the Russian propaganda to de-incentivize the Ukrainian troops on the field. And I have shared the link to our document in the in-call meeting, a list of articles there if you guys are interested. I will try and bring it up here by my computer's working way too hard. And I mean, very. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Was that Paul?
Yeah. I keep losing videos, and it says this video network. Is anybody else getting this? Or
sounds like just your network. Those kinds of messages should just be if it helps you.
well, I'll have Scott come by and.
Speed tests to get an idea of what you consider to be normal, and I find that it's out of whack. I would do an assistant. Say that again, Paul.
That's all one.
System. So if there's any discrepancy in that, interesting tech experience in that regards, Yuya got a hold of me about 2 weeks ago and said our internet is down, which I thought was nearly impossible since I've set up a system that shares both Juan's system and our own DSL connection through Telmex. And so the only way I could imagine both systems to be out is if Telmex was having a major failing, but nobody had gotten a hold of me. And so they're in my office, my wife and my child, with their cell phone video going, and they're showing me the picture of my equipment. We're watching flashing lights together, going, yeah, that looks okay, that looks okay, that looks strange. Well, it turns out that as I walked out of the office, I inadvertently turned off Juan's connection. And so since I've been gone for a month, Telmex, and it finally failed, and there was no failover. It had finally gone on DSL connection, and it should have flipped over to Juan's, which it was turned off Juan's connection without even being aware of it. So when I figured out what was going on, I'm like, press that button and wait a few moments, and then she was back to having internet. I'm afraid, though, she has no energy for calling and reporting Telmex's connection being down, so I've got a feeling she has no failover still. What
The speed test is 47/5.
47 megabytes over 5?
So that's
what you should do.
Yeah, that should be plenty.
Yeah, 5 is not a high number for going out. More than 5 for this video conference. But what you might do is make sure that's consistent for this time period, and then test it again later in the day to see if that's might have just been a glitch. Glitches.
Yeah, I think it's usually 10.
Juan, it fluctuates between 5 and 10. When I first set up with him, I was exactly what I needed for the computer club. And then somewhere in the he's dialed it down, and I've ended up with less, though I'm fighting to push video up. Yeah, well, to be frank, and I think he'd be frank with you too, is that he had to make a choice. I think that he's chosen a contract, but not a lot going up, making it possible to provide more service at a cheaper rate. COVID hit prices because he was having trouble covering how much he was contracting, and I don't think he's gone through in the last 2 years, but I do think this was one of his solutions, is the dial back. Talk to him, because at one point I offered to help him pay for it because I want the bandwidth, and I never heard back from him. I'm still interested in helping him pay.
Change I know is that when I first signed up, he said you don't have to pay for internet until you come back. They want year-round payment.
Oh yeah, I wonder what's that payment look like.
That is true.
Forget I just
30.
That's exactly how much it is, right? That is
Right.
3,600.
And you cannot put it on vacation hold anymore. So
Well, going back to, I think it is.
so Paul,
I just
when I come back.
can I just add one thing?
sure.
I just wanted to tie our current Quan conversation with the Starlink in the Ukraine article. This is available for purchase in Mexico now, so that you can a satellite internet provider now in Mexico. I know that Tammy at Biba Realty, and she bought it through Carlos. This is a viable option for internet. You're not able to get Juan or
Was there any indication on the kind of an antenna that's required and what the cost is?
It's a specialized. I think it's a few $100 to get in. Cheap monthly cost either. I'm thinking it's about $100 a month. Let me do a quick Google search asking in generality. But the antenna is very impressive because it's a self-dialing antenna. You set it up, it actually fits in a briefcase, and you set it up on your property, and it by looking for your satellite and dial it, so you don't have to do any of those kinds adjustments that you would typically do. Pricing right. Upfront and monthly costs. Yeah, it looks like. And there's a one-time fee of $600 for the hardware kit. Start and $110. But they're giving you service that is the speeds of a fiber optic connection. They're
Which brings me to my question, so you hooked up fiber optics.
a very good question.
Already paid one.
Well, I
When I come back.
recommend both.
What?
Stop the count and ensure President Trump's reelection.
Everything.
Prior hearings running through this.
I'm going to re-up with one. I let it lapse.
You'll remember what the president's own attorney.
I think given our situation and
So that's a good way to.
The outcome.
and the price of load
I'm
balancing
sorry, Scott.
routers. I'm sorry, Paul. Would you like me to finish, or do you want a moment?
There's
And I'm
somebody
gonna
else talking about.
I'm gonna mute Judy's hearings because they're coming across.
That, but in November I probably will.
I wanted to say that given our situation growth of internet usage and infrastructure, I am of the mind. Well, and I have a vested in, but load balancing routers are very reasonably priced. So the idea of having two or more internet proposal is a realistic thing, and so you can at our house and have one or the other or both available to you.
Power. I want power.
What's that? Oh, you want power?
I want power.
I'm going to go back to San
gamer.
Carlos doing it again. Go ahead.
Gamer.
That's there you go. I'm going to come back to San Carlos this next season. Start offering this service to people. I had set it up with another customer, and it's a very stable way to maintain two or more internet connections, backup in case something fails. But when I say more internet is if you had some need and it's unrealistic, monstrous number like 200 megabits a second. Let's say you're a video studio for HD TV and you're doing 4K video uploads. You would need some ridiculous amount of speed. Well, that may not be attainable because it's not, when I say more, using two or more internet connections is not piling on. So say you take two internet connections at 10, you don't end up with 120 megabit connection. What you ability to service twice as many people with a 10 megabit connection, if that makes sense. Say your 10 megabit was enough for you. If you were to double that, you could now service up to 4 cents. If the 10 megabits was enough for you and somebody else together, then you'd be looking at the same service you had before, but enough for 4 people. So that's what I mean by more internet. When you do this, when you are more internet connections, there's Well, and in this case, the fiber optics is going to bring you maybe up to 40 or 50 meg, and so you're making that kind of, it's using your network. But if it ends up on one fails, you're going to be at the mercy of whatever is still available. It's a lot of options, but there's one of the things that's very consistent about it is it provides more opportunities for internet, but less consistency. If you understand where I'm.
So my question is, what load
Yeah, well-
balancing router do you recommend?
Oh, would be surprised to find out there isn't a lot of options. TP-Link is the one I recommend because it's the best priced and most. Like I'll bring it up. I'll give you because the technology hasn't changed in years. It is very stable technology.
Mhm.
Done
Oh, and
anything.
let's go back to the, can I say one thing? I was muted when you said you heard my hearing.
No,
I had mute on.
I saw
I did.
your indicator was making vocal signs and but you know,
Right, but I had it, I thought I had it muted, but anyway,
what
I'm muting Nation.
yeah, you might have been muted. One of the things that I've not been able to is the this concept of hear you talking. And I know they've brought it to Google Meet and they have platforms where there's this virtual so that you don't bleed over, but then it's making this intelligent that your system heard the trials. Like you might have had it on mute, but because in fact it'd be interesting to see if it doesn't at least offer to unmute your for you. Are you talking? Do you want to unmute? This is common language you hear in these.
It does say that when I talk. Yes. It does say that when I try and talk. But you have to actually say you want to unmute. Interesting.
I haven't gotten a good feel for when that's a feature or if they're playing around with it. This router right now. And stuff on screen.
Can you buy
Yes.
it off the shelf somewhere, or do you have to order it?
I wouldn't buy it off the shelf because you'd be at the mercy of whatever their inventory is. And I just realized I went through all this and I'm looking at the American side of Amazon. So that does Mexico. In the United States though, it's like a $60 device. Let's see what it is in Mexico. Load balance router. And the reason I recommend this is for failover, more internet. These are the two reasons you do this. And there's the one that I use. Wow, and it's still an amazingly reasonable price. It's 903 pesos. It's called the TL-R470 P Plus. How's that for a memorable name? the
Well, in San Pedro, in California, we have Cox TV and internet, and the speed test pegs a meter around 200.
so probably the only technological change that would be a consideration, and I don't think it were ourselves, but it would be a consideration for with a lot of internet use, a lot of network use. This is the device. I've got it on my screen right now. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's a very simple device. It allows you to have up to 4 add your main network to it. So you would plug a router or a mesh network. This would take in Telnet, Megacable, Starlink, and then what came out network. Let me stick this link in our chat. I actually use this. Oh, am I doing this wrong again? All mess.
So, Scott, do we have to have something else other than the router?
Well,
I mean, router, I have a WAN router, and then I have a load balancing router.
if your system with WAN is set up the way I think it is, then you've got actually 2 routers. You've got one on your antenna. House that's Wi-Fi. You could take that link right from the antenna or internet connection that you would add to this load balancing router. And then you could take his Wi-Fi.
Would have to crawl up on the
No,
top of the second story roof.
no. So Judy, it
Right.
would
Where it's turned into your house.
yeah, where it comes out of the wall and plugs into Juan's router.
Uh-huh.
Add into
Right.
the load balancing router. You take that cable and so then you do need.
Where does it go after
So that's what I was
the
getting
load
at.
balancing router?
Is after the
Yeah.
load balancing router, you want to plug it into your home network. You could make Juan's Wi-Fi router your home router. So you could plug Juan's cable from the wall into the load balancing router, and then you could plug that additional Wi-Fi router that's on the other side of the load balancing router and call that your Wi-Fi network.
Okay.
If that makes sense, yeah. And
Some other piece of equipment.
you should, if you're having good Wi-Fi in your house across that router, there's no need to buy any. If you're trying to solve a Wi-Fi problem at the same time to get into a mesh network, because that's just a great way to go, having it around the house. So you'd have the best of all worlds. You'd have lots of internet, and you'd have lots of Wi-Fi. I think it's important to make the distinction between internet versus Wi-Fi because they're two different conversations. You could have great Wi-Fi and have crappy internet. On the patio, out by the pool, up on the second deck, in the guest house, just all over your place. But
Rudy Giuliani.
and you could have the, but you find you have to sit right next to the
cutting out. So those are two
Or is that me? My connection seems to be rolling pretty good today. Well, what else do we have on today's agenda for tech topics? We've Mexico. We had talked a little bit about the AI that has become sentient, which is a controversial topic right now. Is twofold. The engineer that has made apparently a theologist, and that's part of his role, talking to artificial intelligence questions and higher thought from that perspective, that they employ this kind of engineer. And so that's controversial in itself. People are wondering if he's read too much into it. The fact that the AI is, I guess the controversy just spans a few different things. Because this particular AI in everything, which sounds very Skynetish to me if you're a Terminator fan. The idea of taking artificial intelligence and sticking it in all your devices. You know, a lot. And so knowing
There was
that,
an article this was a interesting presentation on news this morning concerning using artificial that you have at airport. You would walk intelligence thing you had on you, and it could determine whether it's just a regular cell phone or whether it was a bomb, or it was kind of interesting that the capacity of this thing that eliminates all the labor system.
wow. So recognition and try
I wonder
and
if we could do an emotional.
on your emotional state based on some, not so focused on identity, concerned about Paul looks sad. Paul
Well, it would also be, and whether you were nervous or, and it was kind of way out there, you know.
yeah,
But who knows?
When we look at technology doubling and tripling like every year and a half, the amount of power that's available to do this, it's overwhelming. It's hard to even keep track of. But the AI in Google,
and the lack of availability of people who at the airport.
Yeah, right.
In Canada, we can't, so full employment that any sort of menial jobs it's hard to get people to do them, you know.
It goes along with the cleaning of TSA agents that were taking advantage and doing things. They were being inappropriate in people. It'd be interesting if they end up being downgraded to the status of kind of like a hostess. It's virtual fingers through your hair. the robots will make the decision.
People responsible to make sure things are being run. I was in Thailand one time, and there were these people that were making about as much in a year as somebody in North America, responsible for protecting the tigers in their national parks. But somebody from Europe, there was so much. I mean, they needed to up the those people to the tigers.
Well, my photographer's dream,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just awesome. A couple of days.
Like that scary pictures when the tsunami swept through there, but
Yeah.
It was a paradise place.
I've been there too, cleaned up, but
Oh yeah.
and that's where you have all of the five Buddha, and that area is just you cannot see it twice.
Mm-hmm. And the people are quite friendly. I found I went into, and there was a lot of people milling around, and was having a very nice conversation with a man whose father had passed, and explaining how he would go in and be a mourning process, and they offered me food and everything. I found them to be very lovely people. Not just.
What, did you ride an elephant?
No, I didn't try to know. Nobody. But I at least it would have been better as where my feet drag,
Well, going back to some, the AI is sentient conversation. The other controversial things here, besides the possibility, the fact that the guy that's proclaiming it is a theologist, and so he might have a different interpretation of what in Google refuting that it's sentient. The work plan. I think this is how the downfall will happen. Is that an organization has already got a roadmap for where this tech, what better wrench in the works than to have it shut down. But there's also the fact that they have engineer. He is getting paid, but he's been suspended for violating their do not talk clause, one of those documents that legally protecting it, and by making the blog post, he's violating. I not remember. It's great when we're in the middle of this and my brain's not. But essentially that's what he's been suspended for. He's still on now, and there was a question: why was he let go? What did he do a lateral move through the company? No, none of that. He's not being asked to do anything while they are involvement with Google because he violated agreement. We just got a pop-up saying we've got 10 more minutes left in this chat. A moment to open up the next one, just so it's ready to go. Does anyone have anything more they'd like to add to this discussion. We had bit last week, and I mentioned that we should bring it up again. Some more insight into what was actually going on there. And if you have not a video on this, there's a great one out there. I'll find it and I'll post a link for it because I was just watching it the other day. And I think it was done by Vox. They have done the conversation as an audio conversation. And so they read to them the responses that this engineer. So they've got somebody reading the questions of the engineer. They've got somebody else on the computer, and it's how insightful a conversation. Claims that these AIs, as they exist technically, reading sentence patterns and the vocabulary that's being thrown at it. I mean, if you were to follow that thought through, if you were talking in a manner that someone else was talking, you would be more likely to believe that it's the manner that you behave in. It talks the way you talk, and it you understand and use yourself. And so it's not hard. AI would, and it's a chat bot important right now, it is a black box that you talk into and it texts back to you. But the conversation that was reminiscent of the kind of conversation you're having in the first, supposed to talk to you is in the way that you're. So some people would have a more elevated, and that's Google's defense. Good choices.
Well, in relation to like facial recognition and AI, somebody was on Facebook and they were reading about of people's faces into the facial recognition category. Well, I'm never going to give my face, and then for their, see how you would look if you were older, and so you.
Yeah, well, we've gone way beyond that. Any one of your friends posting pictures at your picture. This has been one of the most insidious things, has been like the demonstrations. Facebook databases to identify protesters. Go ahead, Paul.
Well, especially if they put your name.
Facebook admit, or Amazon admit, that they had 10 million pictures of faces.
Yeah, I wonder.
I can't remember.
They were put in a position where they were going to get rid of all that data, and I think I saying that I don't think it matters anymore because they've done what they were supposed to, trained their AI, and now you can get rid of those data necessary for what they've created. Files don't matter anymore. There's another problem with the black box of artificial technology, artificial intelligence, is that you are training a neural network, providing it with data so that it will build synapses. The same way you do to a toddler is you start filling it with information, and it starts making based on it. You call it a black box because you really don't know what's going on the other side of it. You've built a neural network and you've built an interface so that you can feed it information and get information out of it. But what's happening inside, you really don't have a lot of control over because it's just putting together its own connection. Good morning, Maggie. It's been a while since we've seen you. How are you doing? World with talk of artificial intelligence coming to life.
That's what I have. Artificial intelligence. I went through an ordeal buying a house, this house that we're in now. I had a little break between workers, so I thought I'd tune in.
All
I
right.
haven't forgotten you guys. Hope you haven't.
Well,
No,
don't change the fireplace or the roof. Great, Maggie.
Yeah, it looks beautiful, your
You like the
background.
fireplace?
And the roof.
The
Or
roof is pretty. I really like
the ceiling, yeah.
The only thing I'm changing is there's a lot of red brick in here. And I'm thinking about plastering over it.
Maggie,
On the ceiling?
No, not the ceiling, not
Oh,
the
good.
ceiling. Let me see if I can give you an example.
Maggie, I
I
am
know.
posting
My
the link
computer.
to, well, I'm not posting the link. I'm posting the link to the router we were talking about. I'm posting the link to our document because this meeting is going to end shortly and you'll need the other meet code. So if you look,
I'm able to
get to the next meet,
show you real quick.
go ahead.
Yes, we don't like. I'm thinking
Yeah.
about plastering over it. Just keep.
Looks good,
Any
though.
opinion?
That's a lot of mortar
Yeah, I
in that.
think-
A few
I don't
bricks and a
like it.
lot of mortar.
I like it though.
Well, I got a really good estimate, and so far I'm staying within my budget, so I'm happy about that too. It's on the Caracol. Oh, yeah, the ceilings are gorgeous. Can you see the view?
It's coming through as glare.
Too much light?
Yeah, it's just all
Yeah.
white.
Okay.
But it looks
Where
like
is your house?
Yeah. I'll take a picture. You, I don't know how to explain it.
the
If
first
you,
right.
You come up, instead of going back down, of course, you go to the right and all the way over to where you have to turn right or left. You go over that. The fourth house on the left. It's a monster.
Ah. Oh, excellent.
Maybe I'll like it and not want to move. Who knows? So that's what I've been doing. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is it on?
It's on the Caracol. It's on Cabrera. It's going, I don't know how to explain it. I'm not.
Oh, well,
good.
I'll find.
Going south.
Nice.
Yeah, look on a map. Who lives on the Caracol?
No, Tequila, I mean.
Hey, we're down to the last minute.
Okay.
This meeting is going to get our next meeting set up here.
I,
Well, that was a very successful transition from one meet to the next. Computer, there we go.
So Scott, do you have the best bandwidth you can get there in Alaska?
Yeah, I think we've got really deep of the time. There are times when it's questionable. Yes. And so that's the reason we have so at any moment people will be using it. We're also doing something a little different. I think I told you that we bought Roku TVs, and we've got the Roku Live TV. What has happened here? I look frozen for some reason. My whole world is
Cold there in
frozen.
Alaska.
Say again?
Cold there in Alaska.
Nope, it's going up. Going to be 80 soon. We're getting hot.
Long days.
Yeah, it's sun almost never sets, so that heat lasts a long time.
Yeah, we're getting that now too, but we're still getting rain here on the West Coast. Everybody else is in a big heat wave across the country, but on the West Coast, we're still in drizzle. We joke about it because often it happens in June, so we call it Junuary.
January, wary.
June gloom, June gloom.
Yeah,
Well, the West Coast really needs the water, so you can't complain too much.
I'm not complaining. I love the green.
Oh yeah, and trees that don't burn.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, because you can see.
So
Yeah,
we have fast growing up here.
our foxgloves are.
Mhm.
Chester, your trees look real good.
I don't know if you noticed, but
Yeah, I just had a meltdown. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
I just need a moment to pull myself back together. Everything just decided to freeze all
It's
at
all
once.
right.
We just carry on as if we're normal when you're not here.
There we go.
Talk about the weather.
Well, I'm back in business. Here I go. So
We knew you were disabled. We talk about you.
that's not politically
is
correct
that
to talk about disabled people.
Paul, is that background you have tequilas?
Certainly is.
Yeah.
I'm not there today, but when I took this picture, I was eating chilaquiles at the meeting.
I tell you, I'm salivating just thinking about the place.
Chilaquiles con pollo.
Mhm. We're home. We were about 6 weeks on the road getting home. Not all the time, but it was about 6 hours in San Carlos till when we actually slept.
Oh, what's going on now?
Spent our time in Ottawa too.
Sorry, I think
Oh, there he goes. Never mind.
I'm sorry. I think I'm having problems down here. I thought I resolved it, but
Mesh there in Alaska?
we don't. The upgrade when it becomes an issue. Problems I'm having right now have nothing to do with the internet and have all to do. I don't have enough computer to do this stuff anymore. Everything's gotten more sophisticated. But in that,
I'll tell you, you need to.
thank you. In that vein, we have one more article that's been brought to the table. This is about using AI and using Teams. We've never tried using it for the computer club. COVID became just this amazing system for virtual work, so that they could have meetings and bring together, work on documents together, do presentations, is actually included with Windows 11, whether you asked for it or not. And it's free to download and use personally, but there's a lot of features that unless it's been purchased subscription, your Microsoft 365, what they've done recently is they're using artificial intelligence quality. So this is things like audio or the echo. So often that you'll hear some of that kind of sound out. Done over 100,000 different room situations, so that the acoustics of different room experiences has been analyzed and determined how to change the audio experience. Imagine there's all these different ways a room could be set up, and sound comes differently, and they're using to look at those different situations automatically to your audio experience, so you're not even aware of it. Apple has done some of this kind of stuff with the headphones that they offer, making it possible for your headphone audio experience to be better. And the Siri speakers in a room, it over time uses its microphones and speakers to situation. If you've ever wondered why it went out of date even though you thought it worked, it's because they are something you were doing before, just apparently better, a better experience. And one of the things that Microsoft says in this article is that the goal is to bring this technology to the clients, which means your phone, your smart speaker, your laptop would be the one that's in charge of making these decisions for your device. So some devices are going to have a better experience with this than others, and I can imagine older devices might even just be blocking this kind of technology for the same reason I keep getting mad at my computer for just not having enough oomph for this version of Google Meets versus what we started with. They've obviously brought more technology to and my platform's just barely keeping up with it. So this will be in your hands instead of in the cloud, because every time they try and do it in the cloud becomes more expensive, and features like this have to be sold to people to pay for those expenses. When they bring it to the client, well, it's up to you what kind of technology you're going to buy. And so you might determine that, well, we should buy new smartphones or new laptops to our corporate people so that they can take advantage of these new technologies. There's also a lot of technology out there that's underutilized, and so we might see things like an older smartphone get warm using an app like Teams, simply because it's finally being utilized to a higher potential than it was before. Oh my gosh, I am so having a hardware problem right now. I do not
Sometimes
know
I
why.
wonder about this going for perfection. Our son, the colonel, always says, never let perfection get in the way of good enough.
Yeah. Well, and consequently, we're living in a world of good enough now. we've we've I feel like 90% of what we do is considered good enough now.
For an old guy like me, it sure is. I just keep thinking of the refrigerators that used to work for 50 years, or dishwashers that clean the dishes every time, whatever.
Right? Meetings passed. But today it is, for some reason, getting its Duster. I just had to restart the software. And so I suspect
in the
it's
same.
Oh, you're seeing those messages?
On your screen, in your square, message that I got,
I'm getting
in a little
stuff.
black box.
I'm getting from each one of you at different times. Like Chester's just had a thing pop up saying bandwidth is stopping this video from being. Yeah, and that has nothing to do with
So
the problem I'm having with the laptop here. That's
song that I sent to you.
I don't think I did.
Did you hear the song I sent to you? It was an email. It's the Blue Collar Holler. White Collar Holler.
When did you send it?
Last week.
Well, I might have listened to it and have already forgotten. I'm looking for it now.
Well, it's based on a work song. You know, when people were working in the field and singing a cappella, but it's about a software engineer that's coding instead of picking
Ah.
cotton.
I don't think I saw it, but I'm gonna look for it now. It's,
You get that. Get that on the club board so we can all hear it.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm looking for it right now. But what is? Come along, come along.
Sorry about making such a lull in the conversation.
Oh, it's not your fault. It is me and my technical problems.
I had a situation yesterday that I'll relate that was very irritable if you're interested.
Sure, yeah, please. I have run out of topics.
Well,
That's the extent of my topics for today.
Okay, it's a pop-up window that occurred on my computer, and it was from WinZip, and it said that my free trial period had run out and that I had to subscribe and, of course, pay. And interestingly, I could not get rid of the pop-up. I even shut down the computer and restarted it, and the pop-up came back. There was no way to get rid of it. And while finally what I did is I completely eliminated the can't find the word, but I got rid of the program, WinZip program, and then it went away.
So it was
very
related to
irritating.
WinZip, you're saying? The WinZip installation.
It was
Well-
interesting that it was a pop-up you could not get rid of. There was no way to get rid of it.
Well,
And I thought that I would refuse to buy their program based upon that rudeness. I'll call it rude.
is my computer all frozen up again? Yeah, what the only comment I have on that, Chester, is that you don't need WinZip any longer. So uninstall it. It used to be a great utility that we all relied upon. And then throughout the years, Microsoft has integrated their own decompression program into Windows 10 and Windows 11 consequently. And so there's no need to have a WinZip program installed.
Well, that's what I thought, but I thought that WinZip had a lot of gall to put on a pop-up that you could not get rid of.
Yeah, that's infuriating and not necessary anymore. It sounds to me, I haven't paid any attention to WinZip, but it sounds to me like they have been bought by, well, the equivalent of advertising spammers, and the way they're making money is at the very least trying to get you to buy WinZip, but at the worst providing a framework so that advertising can pop up to you just because you installed that product. And we've seen that happen in other products where they get gobbled up by some advertising firm, and then their platform, it just ends up being a platform for shooting you advertising.
Well, I felt like they were trying to steal money.
Well, regardless, it's good to be out of it. It's just be out of it. There's no reason.
How did they figure out you had any? Yeah, there's a guy who called me up on the phone the other day from New York City, and he wanted me to turn on my Microsoft computer, and he had there was some problem with it, and he was calling from Microsoft was his story. And I said, that's just not the way it works. You know, nobody phones you up and tells you to do this. And so he said, just get your ass over there and turn the computer on. So I said, no, thank you. And hung up on him. I don't even have Microsoft computers. So He was
I had-
trying
I had
hard.
the same issue dealing with a Social Security agent, so-called Social Security.
Yeah. So,
I think we talked about that last week.
yeah. Oh, maybe I was gapped on that one. But it's a problem. I keep, because we have friends that have area codes from all over the place. We have a friend that lives in California, but when she got her number, she was in New York City, so she likes having the New York number. It's kind of fun for her. So I'm always loath to just ignore because I don't know somebody from that state. But there's just so many scammers on the nets now.
Well, I've gotten to where, and I didn't do it this morning, but if I get a scam call and first you get a robot, and then they'll say, well, now, punch 1 and we'll bring a representative. Well, I punch 1 and then just don't say anything. I eat up as much of their time as I can.
Oh, there you go. That's what I do to political calls. If it's the wrong party.
Hey guys,
Well, I guess we're done.
I apologize. I've got to call it to an end. We are done. I'm having technical problems on this end and bed and breakfast issues popping up in front of me. So I'm going to call it to a quick end.
All right.
I will see you guys
Cool.
next week. I know you can't see me because everything's frozen again. But this has been the San Carlos Computer Club, and we will meet again next Tuesday at 10. All things working.
With some recommendations, I hope.
Yes, next week we will have some recommendations, Jim.
All right.
You guys have a good week
Au
and
revoir.
tech on. Bye-bye. I'm waving
Bye-bye.
to you even though you can't see me waving. Bye-bye. All right, well, that was it. That was the San Carlos Computer Club. I'm not sure what's going on with OBS today, but it is completely frozen on this presentation, so I'm just going to call it. You guys have a good week, and we will talk next week. If you found any of this interesting, check out our website at scclub.org, and if you're looking for computer help out on the internet, always check with me, Scott, at internationalcs.com. Until next week, tech on.